Yes, time travel. One of my favorite story tropes in fiction is without a doubt time travel. But this is not what I was expecting, and I'll explain why. Get your kid ass out of here. Hello, I'm Discord Jedi Knight, and this gives a great opportunity to show how much of a damn nerd I really am. I have always been fascinated with the concept of time travel. It can honestly make or break an entire series, though it's a double-edged sword you're playing with, and a risky concept if you make it too difficult and convoluted for the average viewer to understand. I think the absolute best example of how time travel can be used is in a little series called Stein's Escape, where a lot has. The basic concept there involves a massive amount of string theory, where depending on what timeline you are on, it can lead to alternate dimensions, resulting in different reality. Okabe, the series' main character, ends up building a time machine by accident and changes so much that something terrible happens. In hopes of undoing it, he has to undo the timelines, but by doing so, he ends up never meeting the love of his life. Along the way, he has to choose between his best childhood friend or the girl of his dreams. The worst part, Steins Gate is a reality where he gets both to live happily, but he has to travel through the tangled web of strings to get there. And as much as I love this story, basically taking a similar route to Back to the Future, I also like that it plays into the idea that if you go to the past, the future becomes your past, and your past becomes your future, as seen in Marvel, which is actually the more accurate concept than the answer to the grandfather paradox. You already pre-exist, so changing something in the past is going to create a new universe, might just change your timeline. This leads me to another great series, Dragon Ball. Not Super, though I hate Super, especially for what they did to my boy Trunks. In Dragon Ball Z, he goes back in time wanting to change his reality, but instead creates an alternate dimension. One that his machine can't transport through, giving him the ability to change his future through his own strength and still have a new timeline where the androids never destroy his home. What? What do you want? Oh, right, rainbow-colored ponies. My Little Pony doesn't exactly follow that route. Basically, in this episode, you can't change the past, it only leads to a loop in time. So, Twilight, worried about not having enough time in your schedule for the next month, That's a thing gets a visit by a future Twilight who looks pretty badass on the design. Twilight doesn't let her future self explain her issues or what led her to become like this. Bam! Time's up. Future Twilight says something bad is going to happen, but doesn't Spywa. Now Twilight worries about it. It's because of that worry that she ultimately turns herself into that mess from the future. In reality, if she just didn't worry, she would have ended up differently. She then tries to tell her past self not to do so, resulting in a time loop. I like the subtle lesson here, not to worry so much about something because you might cause it to happen yourself. I've had experience with this. I used to hate taking tests back in my school days, because the schools would tell me, oh, if I don't get a good grade, there goes my future. Which is a complete lie, by the way. I really hate how the school system is set up, especially when half of it, not all of it, because half is actually not useful at all when you're an adult. Basic writing and math, physical education, which, side note, they don't actually teach you how to be physically educated, just tell you to run around in circles, like that's going to help you become strong. And algebra skills, I think, are required, as well as history, despite it boring me to death. But as much as I love science, art, and other subjects, none of it is necessary for actual adult life. It really annoys me that half of what I learned has never helped me in my life. I used to hate taking tests and would get so worried about them that I couldn't sleep. I'd sit there for hours studying, and then I'd fail because I was so nervous. And tired, so overly worried about failure that would become my reality. By middle school, I just kind of gave up. I was given a test, did my work, and wouldn't be surprised if I got a D. In high school, I usually got as an BS my entire high school life. I even remember one time my teacher asked me and every student of hers what grade I thought I deserved. I looked at her and said, as long as I pass with a C or D, I don't care. She was amazed by my straightforwardness. She then showed me that I had a 99, only missing one question on the test. I told her I used to worry about stuff and fail. But now, I just want to pass without worrying. I didn't care if I got a D or C, as long as it wasn't an F. And I ended up with a DAS and BS in high school. Many of my classmates got the S's because they were too worried about their future. And where did that land me? College. I dropped out and could barely get a job despite being at the top of my class. I tell you, the only class I ever took that helped me was my culinary class from senior year. You'll know, a simple skill like cooking, I can't begin to tell you how useful that is. That should be a mandatory subject. After all, if you can't at least fry up a burger on the stove, you might as well put on a diapers, because there is no help. But it's not your fault that the schools don't teach anything remotely useful. It's only gotten worse now, but let's not get into the psychological mess they are leaving our kids with today. A little surreal, perhaps. Yes, I understand that I can sound way worse than it is, but there is a reason why I bring it up. I did, in fact, not bring it up randomly. Despite the so-called hardship I and so many others go through far worse than what I go through. I don't want to ever diminish that. They think it's just going to be that much harder. And in some instances, you're not wrong. Things are a higher price, and it's harder now to make a living than it was 10 or 20 years ago. But at the same time, if all you do is worry about the future, thinking it's going to be terrible, don't be surprised when the future turns out just as bad, if not worse, because of you and your mindset. I still have a roof over my head. I still have a computer to make videos. I still have the ability to make someone other than myself smile. And while, sure, I have a lot I am worried about a lot of future that doesn't look bright, I've been through some things in my life I really wish I didn't have to go through. That is easily the deepest message this episode has to give, and it might very well be the most important message any My Little Pony episode can provide, which is why it's so high on my list. Yes, despite it not being one of the flashier episodes of the series, this is one of my absolute favorites, and it's going in a stare. It's entertaining, it's funny, and it has a good message. The way Twilight ends up going from a normal to a mess is hilariously fun to watch. She tries to rally the troops and have them disaster-proof the town, but each step leads her toward her future. Soon, a giant three-headed dog shows up, and despite being scary, he's actually a soft sweetheart thanks to Fluttershy and Twilight. They take him back home. No comment, it's Pinky. Of course she's ready for anything. I enjoy all her antics as she tries to prevent the upcoming disaster. Sneaking into the castle to try to solve whatever is coming, ending up in the same ripped uniform as her so-called future self. Finally, when she figures out how to time travel, she tries to prevent her past from dealing with what she went through, resulting in the same mess as before. Yeah, that is the strange thing about it, right? If time travel with an MLP and not be changed, only constantly looped, then why was Starlight able to? A video for the future, but I think that's entire of my nerding out for today. Let me know down in the comments below your thoughts about it. Would you want to time travel? Are you a huge nerd like me? And with that said, like, share, subscribe. Check out this video if you're my thoughts on Twilight as a character. And remember, my friends, friendship is magic.